Iranian delegation, all who observe the month of Ramadan. We wish you the peace and blessings of Ramadan. My name is Dr. Ramy Kurdi. My wife is Amir Hekmati. I'm here with Montel Wiliams as well to represent Amir Hekmati. Today marks 1,400 days of his detainment. We're here especially to promote a very important and urgent plea to the Iranian delegation. Amir Hekmati has been detained for almost 4 years, and recently we've had contact with him and noticed with his phone calls and communication that he's complained of persistent lung infection. For us, this is gravely concerning because he's in a communal environment with other prisoners, and now he's been moved in the last year to what used to be a quarantine part of Evin prison. The seriousness of pulmonary infections in a young man like Amir will be likely hidden with a latent infection, and our greatest concern is for that of tuberculosis. Tuberculosis in almost every country of the world, it persists in America itself. In the health department, you cannot enter a hospital, cannot work in a hospital without a tuberculosis test because of latent infection. A latent or hidden infection can persist in a young man like Amir and not show symptoms until he's gone through great amounts of stress or any type of autoimmune compromise. For Amir, our concern is that he's very strong, but he has had 30 pounds of weight loss since his detainment. Great amount of weight loss and his consistent lung infections, difficulty breathing, coughing, are all signs of possible tuberculosis. Tuberculosis is highly contagious, and his interaction with hardened criminals in the ward that he's in, and some of these criminals are international criminals, the respiratory progression of tuberculosis could happen and no one would know about it for months. For Amir, his symptoms have worsened with weight loss and a grave concern that if he continues to have pulmonary infections despite attempts at general antibiotic treatment that have failed, that he would have persistent problems that could lead to something serious as pulmonary scarring, lung problems that may persist throughout life, or if it truly is tuberculosis, then death. Tuberculosis can spread throughout the body, can persist in other forms of disease, can even enter the bone, and we're very concerned that Amir himself's life is at risk. There's only one way to confirm whether or not he has tuberculosis, and we know that he previously was never exposed to it, even throughout his entire history of travel. He had tuberculosis tests, but there's no evidence that he required any chest x-rays. So tuberculosis test with a small injection under the skin to be monitored by health personnel, that we requested the presence of the Red Crescent, the Swiss embassy as well, to provide an observation of this test. Once administered, the test must be read within 48 to 72 hours of admission. That test would require someone to be attentive, and we request an independent consulate there to observe it, both the administration of the test and the results to be read. It's our responsibility as Amir's family to promote his health and safety. We urge his freedom. If Amir is free, he can come home today and receive treatment in his home country for persistent infections that we know he's not going to tell us more about over the phone. Amir cannot be diagnosed remotely, and we request as a family for international support according to international humanitarian guidelines that he be evaluated. Our previous requests were denied, and we're requesting once again in this month of mercy to the Iranian delegation that he receive that test and the appropriate medical treatment. I'd like to open the floor up to questions. Again, Montel Wiliams here is with us representing the family, and Amir Hekmati to my left is Amir's greatest champion fighting for his freedom. Thank you again for coming.
Sorry, you want to speak?
Thank you all for coming. As I stand before you today, my family's been separated from my brother for, as Ramy mentioned, 1,400 days. In August 2011, when my brother Amir, an American-born citizen of Iranian descent, traveled to Iran for the first time, our family never imagined he would not return. Amir traveled there as a tourist, visiting our aging grandmother and meeting many of our relatives for the first time. He continues to languish in prison. During his time in prison, our father was diagnosed with brain cancer. While suffering from brain cancer, he also had 2 debilitating strokes that have left him needing round-the-clock care. As I stand before you today in Vienna with my husband, leaving my 2 small children behind in the US, I run through the different scenarios in my head on how Amir could be released. I imagine what it will be like to finally be able to hug Amir, my brother. This month is Ramadan, as Ramy mentioned, a month that the Supreme Leader could show Amir mercy during this month of compassion and release him on humanitarian grounds so my brother can be reunited with our very sick father. And they could pardon him completely. They could also offer him amnesty since he has now been imprisoned for nearly 4 years. For those of you that don't know, in Iran, you can be released if 1/3 of your sentence has been served. I just want my brother home. I want my dad to hold his son again. I want my mom's heart to stop breaking. I want the hole that we all feel by his absence to be filled. I want this nightmare to end. I have come all this way because our family needs answers. We need closure. And time is not on our side. I ask that both Secretary Kerry and Foreign Minister Zarif, as they sit across the table from one another, that they take into consideration how much our family is suffering. We implore the Iranian government, as they are here in Vienna, to take action on finding a resolution to Amir's case, to please not continue to defer our appeals to their judicial process and continue to ignore and deny our letters and requests. We ask that Amir's fate not be tied into these nuclear negotiations, but that he not be forgotten while these 2 nations sit face to face. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Montel Wiliams, and some of you may not know who I am and are wondering why I'm here with this family. You know, I am fortunate and blessed that for the last 17, 18 years of my life, I've achieved the status that's considered to be celebrity in the United States. I'm a television personality, radio personality, author, entrepreneur. I have been fortunate to be able to understand that the value of the celebrity is worthless unless I use it for something that can help others. When we reached out to the Hekmati family and offered an opportunity for us to see if we could help raise the level of interest in Amir's story, they heartily said okay, and it really literally helped us achieve what I think we want to do, and that is help get Amir home. I work on a lot of veterans issues in the United States, from health issues, and I don't know if some of you knew about, 3 or 4 years ago, the issues that were going on with the VA hospitals. I got very, very deeply involved in that, and I stay very deeply involved in issues for those who can't speak for themselves. So knowing that Amir's story needed to have some heightened level of interest, I got involved, and I'm going to stay involved with this story until Amir comes home. It's been a wonderful opportunity to sit back and watch a family give of themselves completely. Here's a mother of 2, father of 2, the children are being watched by relatives, but this has been the same for them 10, 20 days a month. Why? Because as a mother, she understands how her mother and father feel about the loss of their son. She's not going to do anything until she can ease the pain of the mother. So I'm here to help them do that. Thank you for coming out. With all due respect, as has been enumerated, there are multiple opportunities for the Iranian government to let Amir free. They can pick any one of the ones that are available today, and this conversation ends with us that day. Thank you.
Thank you, Montel. We're blessed to have you fighting for Amir. We did submit a letter to the embassy today here in Vienna. The letter itself is a request, a formal request from myself representing the family for Amir to have a proper testing for tuberculosis, for life-threatening illness, and just a general medical exam that's observed by an independent medical examiner. We're distributing copies of that letter today. We'll distribute them publicly as well. And this request is great humility and respect to the Iranian people, the Iranian delegation. We're not a political family. Again, we reiterate that Amir is not a part of any type of nuclear talks or agenda. He had no political role, even as a prisoner. He deserves to be free. It is of parallel importance. Amir represents all of humanity. Amir is not one person. Amir is you, and he's me. He's your brother. He's someone's son, an uncle, a loved one, a friend. He represents all that is good in humanity. His lifetime achievements are proof of that. We ask you all to to spread this message of compassion and mercy, again, in this month of Ramadan, a month of mercy, peace, and blessings. We reach out to the Supreme Leader to grant a pardon to Amir. The pardon be of one of mercy in the month of Ramadan, to release him home, and he may be treated there. Our number one request is Amir's freedom, to be treated at home. Our secondary request is, if that is not granted immediately, that he have immediate access to an independent medical examiner. Thank you again, and the floor will be open for questions. Thank you.
Have you requested an independent medical examiner before? What's the response been?
The response has been that Amir is Iranian. Even though he has a dual citizenship, his citizenship was obtained just shortly before he visited Iran for the first time. So the response literally was that they would treat him in the prison by themselves and have no other delegation. We've been refused consular access with the Swiss, who are acting representatives in Iran, for that very reason.
As a doctor, would you explain to them the call that you got from Amir about his intestinal issues? Because this may settle this question a little bit.
The greatest concern is that I received general medical questions from Amir over his short conversations on phone calls that he's been allowed in the last year. And this growing concern of lack of general treatment. Amir had gastrointestinal issues for months. Was suffering dehydration, severe abdominal cramping and pain, and he was being very patient. He almost seemed embarrassed when he asked me on the phone, hey, I just want to ask you, I can't shake this. They give me antibiotics, it's not working. They offer me this antibiotic. He gave me the generic name of it, and I instructed him, even though I'm not a general practitioner, I'm an orthopedic surgeon, I don't deal with general medicine. This is a general medical question, and I offered him a different antibiotic choice. He said that this other antibiotic would be better suited for your symptoms based on a phone exam. And within a week, he said he was prescribed the antibiotic of his request. He said his symptoms resolved within 1 week, which really raised my great concern. That's when the red flags came up, that he was not getting even the most basic of general medical care. Again, an internal medicine doctor, an internist of any background in any country could treat this general problem that he had, and Amir did not receive that appropriate treatment, even offered. And when he requested the antibiotic I recommended, he was successfully treated. And again, I am not a specialist in general medicine. I work on a completely different field of medicine. So that's where I became extremely concerned that he was not getting the most basic of treatment. And with pulmonary symptoms, again, I'm not a pulmonologist, but again, all throughout any environment, whether it be in urgent care or any healthcare setting, tuberculosis is a threat. It is often latent, which means it's a hidden type of presentation, especially in young people. Presents mostly in immune compromise or people under high stress environments. Amir, with recent hunger strikes, 30-pound weight loss, irrespective of a hunger strike, and again, his coughing fits, his severe difficulty breathing at times, the transfer to a previously quarantined ward of Evan Prison with awful conditions which would promote this contagious disease to be spread by inmates that he stated were hardened criminals. Some of them are foreign nationals that were considered criminals. That raised my level of concern to something that is taken for granted here in the West and should be treated very seriously. Yes.
Has there been any communications between the U.S. delegation at this house, during the past, little while at all with you about, because we know that they have said, Secretary has said that they have raised the case. Has there been any communication with you as to the response from the Iranian side?
We've had a difficulty receiving any typical response or formal response, whether it be on paper or verbally. All we are told is that Amir's case is being raised with the Iranians. The response for us is obvious. If Amir is not home, then the response is not the answer that we're looking for. Yes?
Are you satisfied with the level of cooperation that you've received from the U.S. government?
The U.S. government is always available for any questions and have made themselves available 24 hours a day to us. But the questions that we asked, again, our answers have not been received. How do we get Amir home? How quickly can we get him home? Is there an active plan? All we are told that is his case is raised at every level and every meeting on the sidelines. With Amir's father with terminal cancer, Amir potentially with a grave illness that has not been proven, we cannot prove that he does not have a serious infection that is life-threatening or may harm his life permanently, then we're extremely concerned that the answer that we need, there is no active direct plan that the State Department has given us at all for his release.
The question about the U.S. government should include the answer that the U.S. Congress 2 weeks ago signed a unilateral, unanimous referendum supporting Amir's release, and the week before that, the U.S. Senate did the same thing. So there's cooperation. Congressman Kurdi, who has been working directly with the family, along with multiple other bipartisan Congress and senators, who are working together trying to convince the State Department and the President to do more.
Absolutely, this is a huge step for us. The legislative branch of our government has come together between the Senate and the House, and it is, as Montel said, unanimous, bipartisan. Everyone supports the release of prisoners, specifically Amir, in this regard, and for Iran, hopefully to join the international community on a political, economical level, a social level, that they release Amir and the prisoners that are taken, the political prisoners, because the Congress themselves and the Senate would potentially not approve any further communication or deals in the future if this is not met.
Can I add to that? Obviously, as his sister, in my heart, it's never enough until Amir is home. And our greatest concern is that Amir now, obviously today marks 1,400 days, is the longest held American in Evin prison in history. And he was also the first one sentenced to death since 1979. And our government has a moral obligation, while they sit with the Iranians, to continue to raise Amir's case, but not just raise it on the sidelines and ask about his well-being, to ask what is it going to take to bring him home. And so for me, as his sister, it's very concerning, and on our family, that prior to these negotiations and the time that the U.S. and Iran have been sitting across the table with each other, Americans that were detained in Iran were released sooner than Amir has. So the question is, how much effort is being placed? And the result will show in itself after these negotiations end.
Any other questions?
Thank you all again for spreading Amir's message and writing on his behalf. We're always available for any further questions over the next few days, and you can reach out to us via Edelman or directly if you see us even just walking around. Thank you very much.
I have one last piece. One of the headlines could be, is 1,400 days.